Shout out Nike for actually, like, doing something with one of their key players. Probably shouldn't have a picture of Caitlyn right here, but it's such a confusing one because it's clear that they can. It's clear that what they did, which is really annoying me, is like what they've done with Caitlyn Clark seems is like it's a choice.
Nike just threw a massive draft night party for Paige Bueckers with exclusive merch ready to go from day one. Meanwhile, last year, they couldn't even bother to use the correct font for Caitlyn Clark's Rookie of the Year graphic. Suddenly, Nike remembers how to promote their athletes.
Nike just sent me a big box in the mail, and this one was not from LeBron James. Instead, this one is from a bucket known as Paige Bueckers. And they literally sent me a bucket. In this bucket, there was a Paige Bueckers basketball already pumped up, very convenient. And then there were the shoes. These are the Nike GT Hustle 3 Paige Bueckers Player Edition. This whole thing was to celebrate the fact that Paige has become the first NIL athlete to launch a Player Edition shoe with Nike.
The contrast is jaw-dropping and exposes what we've suspected all along.
People seem to get upset that I'm everywhere. That's funny. I seem to upset them here too.
Well, would you look at that? Nike finally remembered they're supposed to be a marketing company. After a full year of treating Caitlyn Clark like some random walk-on player, they've pulled out all the stops for Paige Bueckers. Red carpet, exclusive merchandise, Nike-themed draft night party, the works.
Hey guys, I'm set with Nike.
And don't get me wrong, this is exactly what they should be doing for Paige. She deserves the spotlight and the promotional push as the #1 pick. But it makes what they did, or rather didn't do, for Caitlyn Clark last year all the more baffling.
Now, with our GMA cover story, UConn's Paige Bueckers was chosen #1 at the 2025 WNBA draft by the Dallas Wings. Her storied college career is over, and now she is ready for her next chapter, the WNBA.
Let's rewind to last year's draft. Caitlyn Clark, the most hyped women's basketball player possibly ever, gets selected first overall by the Indiana Fever. The basketball world is watching. Ratings are through the roof. Merchandise is about to fly off the shelves. It's a marketing dream scenario. And what did Nike do? Absolutely nothing. No draft night party, no immediate merchandise, no special colorways ready to go. Nothing. In fact, do you remember how long it took for Nike to even make Caitlyn Clark jerseys available? Months. Literal months into the season before fans could buy official jerseys of the most popular player in the league. Meanwhile, Fanatics sold out of her merchandise within an hour of making it available. An hour, but for Paige, everything was ready to go immediately. The second she was drafted, the merch was up, the Nike-sponsored party was already planned, the social media campaign was locked and loaded. It's almost like they actually cared this time.
I was a kid who loved wearing Nikes, all the signature shoes. So to have this PE shoe, it's surreal. Like, what? Like, that's crazy.
And let's talk about that embarrassing Rookie of the Year graphic they made for Caitlyn. I'm not exaggerating when I say this looks like something an intern threw together in 75 seconds using Microsoft Word. They didn't even use the Nike font. It literally says first, with 19 times in one game, first rookie to score a triple-double. That's barely English. Who says someone scored a triple-double? Nobody talks like that. They couldn't even be bothered to mention the most important part. Caitlyn Clark 2024 WNBA Rookie of the Year. Instead, they used some generic text that looks like it was typed out letter by someone who just discovered what a keyboard is. Compare that to what they've done for Paige. Clean design, proper branding, messaging that actually makes sense. They've got Paige Bueckers, 2025 #1 pick, prominently displayed with actual design elements. You know, like a company worth billions of dollars should be able to produce. This wasn't an accident or an oversight. This was a choice. Nike deliberately chose to put minimal effort into promoting Caitlyn Clark, and now they're showing exactly what they're capable of when they actually want to promote someone. And it's not like they didn't know Caitlyn was going to be a big deal. Everyone knew. The entire basketball world was talking about her before she even declared for the draft. Her college games were drawing NBA-level viewership. She was breaking records left and right. There was zero doubt she would be the biggest story in women's basketball. Yet somehow Nike, the company that built its entire brand on identifying and promoting the next big thing in sports, completely whiffed on this. The same company that signed Michael Jordan as a rookie, the same company that built entire campaigns around Tiger Woods before he won a major, that Nike somehow didn't see the potential in Caitlin Clark? Please, remember when Caitlin's salary details leaked last year, and Aja Wilson went on social media throwing a pity party about it? Remember how the entire WNBA seemed to pile on, criticizing Caitlin for checks notes, being popular and marketable? That's all we saw last year. And I'm convinced Nike made their decisions based on Twitter reactions rather than actual business sense. Let's look at the Player Edition shoes as another example. They're finally releasing Caitlin Clark PS this year, but they're calling them Indiana Fever PS, not Caitlin Clark PS. That's significant, because it means she likely doesn't get the same percentage cut as she would if her name was on the product. Again, a deliberate choice. Meanwhile, Paige Bueckers already had her own shoe before even being drafted. Just like Jewel Lloyd had multiple shoes before Caitlin got anything. Nike knew exactly what they were doing. They chose to sideline Caitlin while elevating others. And let's be clear about something. This isn't about saying Paige Bueckers doesn't deserve the attention. She absolutely does. She's an incredible talent and the rightful #1 pick. What Nike is doing for her now is exactly what they should be doing for their top athletes. The problem is they deliberately chose not to do the same for Caitlin last year. It's also telling that Nike seems to have completely forgotten about other stars like Nafisa Collier. Remember her, the WNBA Finals MVP, the player who led the Minnesota Lynx to a championship? Nike certainly doesn't seem to. Heck, I'm not sure Gino Auriemma even remembers she played at UConn despite being the 4th leading scorer in their history. But back to Caitlin and Paige. The contrast in treatment couldn't be more stark. When Caitlin joined the league and landed her Nike deal, veterans lost their minds. You have to earn it, they said. Now Paige is getting deals and the red carpet treatment before even playing a single WNBA minute. And suddenly that's okay. The hypocrisy is astounding, but not surprising. Caitlin Clark exposed a lot of uncomfortable truths about the WNBA and women's basketball during her rookie season. And one of the biggest was how the establishment didn't quite know how to handle a phenomenon they didn't create. To be fair, it's possible Caitlin said no to a draft night party. That doesn't seem like her scene. But that doesn't explain the lack of merchandise, the embarrassing graphics, or the general indifference Nike showed toward the biggest thing to happen to women's basketball in decades. What makes this whole situation even more baffling is that it's not like Nike has forgotten how to promote athletes. As we're seeing with Paige, they absolutely know what they're doing when they want to. They can put together slick campaigns, have merchandise ready to go, create beautiful graphics, and build genuine excitement. They just chose not to do it for Caitlin. Is it because Caitlin isn't from a traditional power school? Is it because she doesn't fit some predetermined mold of what a women's basketball star should be? Is it because Nike executives got caught up in the weird social media backlash against her? Whatever the reason, it was a massive business mistake. Caitlin Clark jerseys sold out instantly whenever they became available. Her games brought record viewership. Her social media numbers dwarfed those of almost every other athlete in the WNBA. From a pure business perspective, Nike should have been all over her from day one. The reality is that Nike finally realized their mistake. After Caitlin's rookie season proved just how massive her impact on the game was. Suddenly there were billboards. Suddenly there were campaigns. Suddenly Nike remembered that their entire business model is built on identifying and promoting the biggest stars in sports. But it was too late. The damage was done. The contrast between how they treated Caitlin last year and how they're treating Paige now makes it crystal clear that Nike's initial approach to Caitlin wasn't an oversight. It was a conscious decision. And look, Cooper Flagg is about to sign with Under Armour, and you can bet they're going to roll out the red carpet for him. That's what smart companies do for potential generational talents. They don't wait to see if Twitter approves. They don't hesitate because some veterans might get upset. They recognize star power and they capitalize on it. Nike forgot that lesson with Caitlin Clark, and they're trying to pretend it never happened by going all in on Paige Bueckers. But we see the difference. We notice the contrast, and we remember how they treated the player who single-handedly brought millions of new fans to women's basketball. What's particularly interesting is that Nike seems to have learned their lesson just in time for the next big star. They're not making the same mistake twice. They're positioning Paige as a superstar from day one, which again is exactly what they should be doing. But it only highlights how badly they mishandled Caitlin's arrival in the league. Even the differences in social media approach are telling. For Caitlin, we got basic posts with minimal engagement. For Paige, we're seeing coordinated campaigns across multiple platforms with custom content and interactive elements. It's night and day. The merch availability tells a similar story. Paige's jersey is already available in multiple sizes, though selling out in some, while Caitlyn's took forever to hit the market despite unprecedented demand. It's like Nike was actively trying to avoid making money last year. Now let's talk about the player edition shoes again, because this is important. When you get a PE with your name on it, you typically get a percentage of sales. When it's branded as a team PE, that arrangement changes significantly. By calling Caitlyn's shoes Indiana Fever PEs rather than Caitlin Clark PEs, Nike made another choice that impacted her potential earnings. These are all deliberate decisions made by people who absolutely know better. This is Nike we're talking about, not some startup that doesn't understand the business of sports marketing. They wrote the book on this stuff. They just decided that Caitlin Clark wasn't worth the effort last year. And what's the result? Caitlin has become such a massive star that Nike has been forced to course correct. They've had to pretend they were always behind her while scrambling to make up for lost time. Meanwhile, Caitlin's off breaking records, selling out arenas, and driving WNBA viewership to unprecedented heights, all without much help from the company that's supposed to be promoting her. The most ironic part is that Nike's treatment of Caitlin probably helped fuel her popularity. Fans noticed the disparity. They saw how the establishment seemed to be working against her rather than with her, and they rallied behind her even more as a result. Sometimes the best marketing is letting people think you're an underdog, even when you're clearly the most talented player on the court. But make no mistake, Nike didn't plan that. They weren't playing 4D chess with Caitlin's image. They simply misjudged the moment, got caught up in the weird politics surrounding her arrival in the league, and made a series of bad business decisions as a result. Now they're overcompensating with Paige, which again is great for Paige. She deserves the spotlight and the promotional push. But it's impossible not to notice the stark contrast between how these two #1 picks have been treated by the same company just 1 year apart. What's particularly frustrating is that there's room for both stars to shine. Women's basketball is growing rapidly, and having multiple marketable stars is good for the game. Nike doesn't need to choose between Caitlin and Paige. They can and should promote both aggressively. The fact that they seemingly couldn't figure that out last year speaks volumes about their approach to women's sports. It's also worth noting that Nike's treatment of Caitlin affected more than just her. It sent a message to every women's basketball player that your popularity with fans might not matter if you don't fit a certain mold or come from a certain program. That's a terrible message to send to young athletes who are looking up to these stars. The good news is that Nike seems to have realized their mistake. They're not going to make the same error with Paige that they made with Caitlin. And honestly, that's progress. It's just frustrating that it took them completely dropping the ball on the biggest thing to happen to women's basketball in decades to figure it out. So what happens now? Nike will continue to ramp up their promotion of Caitlin because they have no choice. She's too big to ignore. They'll go all in on Paige from day one because they've learned their lesson. And hopefully they'll realize that women's basketball deserves the same level of marketing investment and attention as men's basketball. Because here's the thing, what Nike did with Caitlin Clark last year wasn't just a disservice to her, it was a disservice to the entire women's game. When you have a once-in-a-generation talent driving unprecedented interest in your sport, you should be doing everything possible to capitalize on that moment, not dragging your feet because some people on Twitter are upset about her popularity. The reality is that Caitlin Clark has done more to grow women's basketball in 1 year than many marketing campaigns have done in decades. She's brought in new fans, driven record viewership, and changed perceptions about women's sports. And she did it largely without the support she should have had from one of the biggest sports marketing companies in the world. So yes, it's great that Nike is finally doing right by Paige Bueckers. She deserves it. But let's not forget how they initially treated Caitlin Clark, because that treatment exposed a lot about how the establishment views disruptors in women's sports. And it's a lesson that should be remembered as the WNBA continues to grow and evolve. The truth is, Nike didn't just fail Caitlin Clark last year, they failed themselves. They missed out on fully capitalizing on one of the biggest sports marketing opportunities in recent memory, because they couldn't see past whatever internal politics were guiding their decisions. That's a business school case study in what not to do, but at least they seem to have learned their lesson, even if they're pretending they never made a mistake in the first place. Better late than never, I suppose. Just don't try to tell us this was the plan all along, because we've seen the receipts, and they tell a very different story. Nike's full-court press for Paige after benching Caitlin for a year speaks volumes. They didn't forget how to promote athletes. They chose not to for Clark. Now they're overcompensating like we won't notice the difference. Hit subscribe if you're tired of the double standards, and comment below with who deserves a signature shoe first.